Naomi's hands trembled as she set the whiskey glass on the polished table. The amber liquid caught the dim light of the private room, innocent in appearance yet deadly in truth. Her pulse hammered against her ribs as she watched the man across from her, Kang Dae-won, the most feared name whispered in Chicago's underworld. He didn't look at her. Not yet. She'd served him twice before in the past month, always in this same secluded corner of Lotus, the upscale Korean fusion restaurant where she'd worked for 6 months. Each time, he'd been surrounded by men in expensive suits, their conversations hushed, but weighted with danger. Each time she'd kept her eyes down, delivered the drinks, and disappeared like smoke. But tonight was different. Tonight, she'd watched Marcus, the bartender she'd trusted, the man who'd helped her get this job, slip something into this specific glass. She'd seen the brief exchange between Marcus and a man in the shadows. She'd seen money change hands. Kang Dae-won reached for the glass. Naomi's body moved before her mind caught up. She grabbed a cocktail napkin, scrawled 4 words with shaking fingers, and pressed it against his wrist as she set down the drink. His eyes lifted to hers, dark, penetrating, lethal. The note read, "Don't drink this. Leave." Dae-won's fingers closed around Naomi's wrist before she could pull away. His grip wasn't painful, but it was absolute, the hold of a man accustomed to controlling everything in his sphere. "What did you say?" His voice was low, accented with the soul he'd left 15 years ago, smooth as aged whiskey and twice as dangerous. Naomi's throat constricted. Around them, his 3 associates had gone eerily still, hands drifting toward concealed weapons. The private room, decorated in minimalist elegance with rice paper screens and dark wood, suddenly felt suffocating. Her voice cracked. She forced herself to meet his gaze, those obsidian eyes that seemed to strip away every defense. "Please just trust me." He studied her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. She was acutely aware of everything in that moment. The way his tailored black shirt stretched across his shoulders, open at the collar to reveal the edge of an intricate dragon tattoo snaking up the left side of his neck, the expensive watch on his wrist, the thin scar bisecting his right eyebrow, the way he smelled, sandalwood and something darker, more primal. Hyun-soo. Dae-won's gaze never left Naomi's face as he addressed the man to his right. "Take this to the car. Have it tested." One of his men immediately retrieved the whiskey glass, handling it with careful precision. Naomi's knees nearly buckled with relief. "You!" Dae-won's thumb pressed against her racing pulse. "What's your name?" "Naomi. Naomi Baptiste." Her Haitian mother had named her, hoping for beauty and grace. Right now, Naomi felt neither. Naomi. The way he shaped her name with his accent sent an unwelcome shiver down her spine. "You're going to tell me everything you know, but not here." Before she could process his words, he stood in one fluid motion, his hand shifting from her wrist to the small of her back. The touch burned through the thin fabric of her black work blouse. He guided her toward the door with a gentleness that contradicted the steel beneath. "Mr. Kang, I need to get back to work. I'll lose my job." "You'll lose more than that if whoever poisoned my drink realizes you interfered." His breath stirred the tight coils of her natural hair, pulled back in a low bun. "Do you understand what you've done?" The weight of it crashed over her. She'd saved a gangster's life. She'd exposed herself as a witness. She'd made herself a target. "I couldn't just let you die," she whispered as they moved through the restaurant's elegant corridor. His hand flexed against her back. "Why not? You don't know me." "I know enough." She'd grown up in Little Haiti in Miami, had moved to Chicago 3 years ago, chasing a dream that had crumbled like ash. She'd seen violence, knew its aftermath. "I know that whatever you are, you don't deserve to be poisoned like a rat." Something flickered in his expression, surprise perhaps, or a reluctant respect. They emerged into the main dining room, all exposed brick and Edison bulbs. where the beautiful people of Chicago's Gold Coast paid $50 for bibimbap. Naomi caught sight of Marcus behind the bar, his dark skin ashen as he tracked their movement. Their eyes met for a fraction of a second. His expression confirmed everything. "Him?" Daewon's voice dropped to a lethal purr. He'd followed her gaze with the instincts of a predator. "Please." Naomi's voice broke. "He has a daughter. I don't know why he did it, but he tried to kill me." Daewon steered her toward the exit, his other men materializing around them like shadows. "And he involved you." The November wind hit her as they stepped outside, cutting through her thin clothes. Chicago's downtown glittered around them, the river reflecting the city lights like scattered diamonds. A black Mercedes waited at the curb, its engine purring. "Get in. I can't just leave. My shift—" "You don't work here anymore." He opened the rear door, his body angled to give her no escape route, not threatening but immovable. "Get in, Naomi. We need to talk. And you're not safe out in the open." She thought of her studio apartment in Pilsen, small and shabby but hers. She thought of her morning shift at the diner in Bronzeville, the way she juggled 2 jobs to afford insulin for her mother back in Miami. She thought of how, in one impulsive moment of conscience, she'd shattered the careful invisibility she'd cultivated. "If I get in that car," she said slowly, "what happens to me?" His jaw tightened. In the streetlight, she could see the tattoo more clearly now, a dragon in traditional Korean style, its scales rendered in exquisite detail, its mouth open in a silent roar. Beautiful and terrifying. "That depends on what you tell me." He paused, and something in his face softened by a fraction. "I don't hurt innocent people, Naomi, but I need to know who wants me dead and how you're connected." "I'm not connected. I just saw—" "And get in." Not a request this time. She slid into the leather interior, her heart a wild drum. Daewon followed, close enough that his thigh pressed against hers in the confined space. The door closed with a heavy thunk, sealing her fate. As the car pulled away from the curb, Naomi watched Lotus recede through the tinted window. Through the glass, she saw Marcus being escorted out by 2 men in dark suits, saw the fear contorting his features. "What will you do to him?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Daewon's hand rested on his knee, inches from her leg. "That depends on why he did it, who paid him, what he knows." His fingers drummed once, twice. "Whether his daughter truly exists, or if you're lying to manipulate me." "I don't lie." She turned to face him, anger flaring through her fear. "And I don't manipulate. I helped you because it was the right thing to do, not because I want something from you." His eyes searched hers, looking for deception. She held his gaze, refusing to flinch. "Then you're either very brave or very foolish." His lips curved in something that wasn't quite a smile. "I haven't decided which. Maybe I'm both." This time his smile reached his eyes, transforming his face from harsh to devastating. "Maybe you are." The car turned onto Lakeshore Drive, the vast darkness of Lake Michigan spreading out beside them. Naomi had no idea where they were going, had no idea what would happen when they arrived. But as Daewon's hand shifted, his knuckles brushing against her thigh in a touch that might have been accidental, but felt intentional, she realized with startling clarity that the danger she faced wasn't just from whoever had tried to kill him. It was from the man beside her, and the way her body responded to his proximity, despite every logical warning screaming in her mind. The penthouse occupied the entire top floor of a building overlooking Millennium Park. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the Chicago skyline like a living painting, the city spread out in glittering excess. Naomi stood in the center of the living room, her worn sneakers sinking into carpet that probably cost more than her annual rent, and tried not to feel like she'd stepped into another world. Which she had. Daewon shrugged out of his jacket, draping it over a charcoal leather sofa. Without it, she could see the lean muscles of his shoulders, the way his shirt had been tailored to his athletic frame. He moved to the bar, because of course there was a bar, and poured 2 fingers of whiskey into a crystal glass. "Drink?" He held up a second glass. "After what almost happened tonight." She wrapped her arms around herself. "I'm good." His mouth quirked. "Fair point." He took a slow sip, watching her over the rim. "Sit, Naomi. You look ready to bolt. Can you blame me?" "No." He settled into an armchair, all coiled grace and latent danger. "But you're safe here, safer than anywhere else in Chicago right now." She perched on the edge of the sofa, maintaining distance. "Why? Because you'll protect me or because you're keeping me prisoner? There's a difference?" His tone was dry, but his eyes held something that might have been amusement. "In my world, there is." "And what world is that?" He leaned back, apparently content to study her. "Tell me about Naomi Baptiste. Haitian name, American accent. Working 2 jobs if the exhaustion in your face tells me anything. No ring, so no husband. What brings a woman like you to serve drinks to men like me?" "Bills." She met his gaze steadily. "Student loans from a degree I never finished. My mother's medical expenses. Rent. You know, the usual American dream." "Your mother is sick." "Diabetes. She's back in Miami." Naomi's throat tightened. "I send her money every month for insulin and doctor visits." Something shifted in his expression. "And your father?" "Never met him." She lifted her chin. "My mother raised me alone, worked 3 jobs to give me a chance at something better. So yes, Mr. Kang, I work 2 jobs and I'm tired, but I'm here and I'm surviving." He was quiet for a long moment, the whiskey forgotten in his hand. "My mother cleaned houses when we first came to America," he said finally, his accent thickening with the memory. "Rich families in Evanston. She scrubbed their toilets and washed their floors while they pretended she was invisible. Every night she came home with hands cracked and bleeding, but she always asked about my homework." The admission hung between them, vulnerable and unexpected. Naomi found herself leaning forward slightly. "Where is she now?" "Safe. Comfortable." He took another sip. "I made sure of that." "By becoming a gangster?" His laugh was sharp and humorless. "By becoming successful. The legal system in America wasn't built for people who look like me, Naomi, or you. We take the opportunities available. Murder and extortion are opportunities. Survival is an opportunity." His gaze pinned her. "Don't lecture me on morality when you don't know what I've sacrificed to protect my family." Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, his expression hardening. "Yes?" Naomi couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but she watched the tension coil through Daewon's frame. His free hand clenched into a fist. The dragon on his neck seemed to pulse with fury. "Confirm it." His voice was ice. "Then bring him to the warehouse. I'll deal with this personally." He ended the call and stood, draining the whiskey in one swallow. When he turned to her, his face was a mask of cold rage that made her blood freeze. "The drink was laced with ricin," he said flatly. "I'd have been dead within 48 hours. Slow, painful, and nearly impossible to trace." Naomi's hands flew to her mouth. "Oh, God! Your friend Marcus?" Daewon crossed to the windows, his reflection ghost-like against the night. "He was paid $50,000 by the Bratva, the Russian mob. They've been trying to edge into my territory for 6 months. This was their move. Is he—" She couldn't finish the question. "Alive. For now." Daewon's jaw clenched. "He claims he didn't know what the substance was, just that he was supposed to make sure I drank from that specific glass. Claims they threatened his daughter if he didn't comply." Relief and horror warred in Naomi's chest. "So you believe him?" "I believe everyone's survival instinct." He turned back to her, and the look in his eyes made her shiver. "The question is what I do about it, and what I do about you." She stood on trembling legs. "What does that mean?" He crossed the room in 3 strides, stopping close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. This close, she could see the faint shadows beneath them, the lines of stress bracketing his mouth. He wasn't just dangerous. He was exhausted, carrying weights she couldn't imagine. "It means you saved my life tonight," he said quietly. "It means the Bratva will figure out someone warned me. They'll review security footage, identify you, and come after you to tie up loose ends." Her breath caught. "They'll kill me. They'll try." His hand lifted, and she flinched involuntarily. He froze, something flickering across his face. Regret, maybe, before he lowered his arm. "I won't let that happen." "Why?" The question burst out. "You don't know me. I'm nobody. You're somebody who risked everything to save a stranger." His voice was rough. "Do you know how rare that is? In my world, loyalty is bought with fear or money. But you—" His hand lifted again, slower this time, and she didn't flinch as his fingers brushed her cheek. "You did it because you couldn't live with yourself otherwise." The touch was feather-light, almost reverent. Naomi's skin burned where he made contact, her body responding with a heat that terrified her. She should step back, should demand he take her home, should run from this man and his dangerous world. Instead, she stood frozen as his thumb traced the curve of her jaw. "I'm putting you under my protection," Day One said, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "You'll stay here, where I can keep you safe. My men will guard you, and when this is over, when the threat is eliminated, you can go back to your life. And if I refuse—" His hand fell away. "Then you'll be dead within a week." The brutal honesty hit like a slap. Naomi wrapped her arms around herself again, trying to ward off the chill seeping into her bones. "So I'm a prisoner after all." "You're protected." He stepped back, giving her space. "There's a difference, even if you can't see it yet." She laughed, a broken sound. "You're asking me to trust the man I just saved from assassination, to live in his home, under his control. You realize how insane that sounds?" "Yes." His lips curved in a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Welcome to my world, Naomi Baptiste. I promise you'll never be bored." 3 days in Day One's penthouse felt like 3 years. Naomi paced the length of the guest bedroom, a space larger than her entire studio apartment, with its own bathroom done in Italian marble and a bed so soft she barely slept in it. The anxiety wouldn't let her rest. Every creak of the building, every distant siren sent her pulse skyrocketing. She was a prisoner in a gilded cage. Day One had been absent most of those days, appearing only for brief conversations that felt more like interrogations. He'd assigned 2 guards to her, silent men who stood outside her door and escorted her anywhere she wanted to go in the penthouse. She had access to everything: the gourmet kitchen, the library with its floor-to-ceiling shelves, the gym, the rooftop terrace, everything except freedom. On the 4th morning, she woke to find him in the kitchen, shirtless. Naomi froze in the doorway, her mouth going dry. She'd known he was fit. The tailored clothes had hinted at it, but seeing him like this was different. His torso was a landscape of lean muscle and controlled power, his skin marked with scars that told stories of violence survived. The dragon tattoo she'd glimpsed on his neck continued down his left shoulder and across his chest, its tail wrapping around his ribs in intricate detail. He glanced up from the stove, a spatula in hand. "You're awake." She forced her eyes to his face, heat flooding her cheeks. "I didn't know you cooked." "My mother insisted I learn." He returned his attention to the pan, where something that smelled incredible was sizzling. "She said a man who can't feed himself is a man who can't survive." Naomi drifted closer, drawn by hunger and curiosity. "What are you making?" "Kimchi bokkeumbap, fried rice." He glanced at her again, his gaze traveling from her sleep-mussed hair to her bare feet, lingering on the tank top and shorts she'd borrowed from clothes he'd had delivered. "And garan mari, rolled eggs, sit." It wasn't a request, but his tone was gentler than before. Naomi slid onto one of the bar stools, watching as he plated the food with surprising care. He set it before her, along with chopsticks and a fork. "I wasn't sure if you knew how to use these." He nodded to the chopsticks. "My ex was Korean," she said without thinking, then winced. "Sorry, that was relevant." He poured her water, then coffee. "What happened?" "He wanted someone more. Traditional. His family didn't approve of me." She picked up the fork, unwilling to fumble with chopsticks in front of him. "Turns out, love doesn't conquer all. Just most of your self-esteem." Daewon leaned against the counter, his arms crossed over his bare chest. He was a fool. The simple statement made her look up. Their eyes met, and something electric passed between them, an awareness that had been building since that first touch in the restaurant. "Eat," he said quietly. "You've barely touched the food I've sent to your room." She took a bite, and flavor exploded on her tongue. The kimchi was tangy and spicy, the rice perfectly seasoned, the eggs silky and rich. "Oh my God!" His mouth twitched. "Good?" "Incredible." She took another bite, then another, suddenly ravenous. "Where did you learn to cook like this?" "My mother, mostly, but also—" He paused. "In prison." She nearly choked. "Prison?" 4 years when I was younger." He said it matter-of-factly, as if discussing the weather. "I was protecting my sister from someone who thought Korean girls were easy targets." The court didn't see it as self-defense. Naomi set down her fork, studying him. "Your sister, is she okay now?" "Married to a good man, living in San Francisco, as far from this life as I could get her." Something softened in his harsh features. "She has 2 daughters. I've never met them. It's safer that way." The loneliness in those words pierced her. "That must be hard." "It's necessary." He straightened, the vulnerability shuttering away. "Finish eating. We need to talk." But before she could ask about what, his phone rang. He glanced at the screen and cursed in Korean. She recognized the harsh consonants, if not the words. "I have to take this." He disappeared into his office, leaving her alone with the remains of breakfast and a growing sense of dread. When he returned 15 minutes later, his face was carved from stone. "Get dressed," he said tersely. "Something nice. We're going out." "Out? You said I couldn't leave." "You're coming with me to a meeting. The Bratva wants to negotiate." His eyes glinted dangerously. "And they specifically requested to see the woman who saved my life." Terror spiked through her. "No, absolutely not." "Naomi." He crossed to her, his hands gripping her shoulders. "I won't let anything happen to you, but they know you exist. Denying them will only make this worse. You're using me as bait. I'm bringing you under my protection publicly." His thumbs pressed against her collarbones, the touch sending inappropriate sparks through her nervous system. "If they see you're mine, they'll know touching you means war. It's the safest move." "Yours?" She tried to ignore the way her body responded to his proximity. "I'm not yours. I'm not anyone's." His jaw tightened. "For the next few hours, you are. Play along, Naomi. Your life depends on it." 2 hours later, she stood beside Daewon in a private room at an upscale steakhouse in the Loop, wearing a black dress his people had provided that hugged every curve. His hand rested possessively on her lower back as 3 Russian men entered, their cold eyes assessing her like a piece of meat. "So this is her," the one in the middle said in heavily accented English. "The curious waitress. This is Naomi." Daewon's voice was silk over steel. "And she's under my protection. Permanently." The Russian's smile didn't reach his eyes. "We meant no harm, Kang, simply business. Attempting to poison me is business? A negotiation tactic." The man's gaze slid to Naomi. "One that failed thanks to your companion. Perhaps we underestimated your appeal." Daewon's hand flexed against her back, a warning. "Perhaps you underestimated me." The tension in the room was suffocating. Naomi fought to keep her expression neutral, to not show the fear coursing through her veins. But when the Russian took a step closer, Day One moved, placing himself between her and the threat. "We have a new proposition," the Russian continued. "A partnership, access to our networks in exchange for your territory in Chinatown." "No." "Think carefully, Kang. We could make things difficult for you, and for her." The room temperature seemed to drop. Day One's voice, when he spoke, was lethal. "If you or anyone associated with you comes near her, I will burn everything you've built to the ground. Your operations, your men, your family in Moscow. Nothing will be safe. Do we understand each other?" The Russian's smile faded. "You'd start a war over a woman." Day One's hand found Naomi's, lacing their fingers together. "Try me." They didn't speak during the ride back. Day One's hand remained clasped around hers, his thumb tracing absent circles on her palm that made coherent thought impossible. Naomi stared out the tinted window, watching Chicago blur past, and tried to process what had just happened. He'd threatened war. For her. Back in the penthouse, the silence stretched taut between them. Day One poured himself a drink, his third in as many hours, and Naomi recognized the tension in his shoulders, the barely leashed violence in his movements. "You shouldn't have done that," she said quietly. He drained the glass. "Done what?" "Threatened them over me." She moved closer, her heels clicking on the hardwood. "I'm not worth starting a war." He slammed the glass down hard enough to crack it. When he turned to her, his eyes blazed. "Don't." "Don't what?" "Don't tell me what you're worth." He closed the distance between them in 2 strides. "You saved my life, Naomi. You risked everything for a stranger. You think I'm going to let those bastards hurt you?" "You barely know me." "I know enough." His hands cupped her face, forcing her to meet his gaze. "I know you work yourself to exhaustion for a mother who lives 800 miles away. I know you tried to protect Marcus, even after he betrayed me. I know you're terrified right now, but you're still standing here, still fighting. So don't tell me you're not worth protecting." Her breath came in short gasps. His hands on her face were gentle despite his intensity, his thumbs brushing her cheekbones with devastating tenderness. She could smell the whiskey on his breath, could feel the heat radiating from his body. "Day One..." "Say it again." His voice was rough. "What? My name? Say it again." The word stuck in her throat. But his eyes... God. His eyes were desperate and fierce and vulnerable all at once. Against every shred of common sense, she whispered, "Day One." He kissed her. It wasn't gentle. His mouth crashed against hers with weeks of tension, days of proximity, hours of denying what had been building between them. Naomi gasped, and he deepened the kiss, one hand sliding into her hair while the other wrapped around her waist, pulling her flush against him. She should push him away, should remember who he was, what he did, the danger he represented. Instead, her hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against hers. "Tell me to stop," he murmured. "Tell me this is a mistake." "It is a mistake," she whispered back. "You're a criminal. I'm nobody. This can't work." "Then tell me to stop." His lips brushed her jaw, her neck, the sensitive spot below her ear. "Tell me you don't feel this too." But she couldn't. Because despite everything, the danger, the impossibility, the sheer insanity of it, she did feel it. This magnetic pull, this undeniable connection that defied logic and reason. "I hate you," she breathed as his mouth found hers again. "I hate that you make me feel this way." "I know." His hands roamed her back, her sides, learning her curves. "I hate it too." They stumbled toward his bedroom, shedding clothes between desperate kisses. When he lifted her, her legs wrapped around his waist instinctively, and she felt the full evidence of his desire pressed against her. Heat pooled low in her belly, need overtaking fear. The bedroom door closed behind them, and the city light streaming through the windows cast everything in shadow and silver. Naomi woke alone. Pale sunlight filtered through the windows. She sat up, clutching the sheet to her chest, and found a note on the pillow beside her. Had to handle something. Stay here. You're safe. DW reality crashed back with brutal force. She'd slept with a gangster. Not just slept with, she'd let him consume her, had given herself to him completely in ways she'd never experienced before. Even now, her body ached in places that reminded her of his possession, of how thoroughly he'd claimed her. What had she done? She showered quickly, trying to wash away the guilt and confusion. But as she stood under the scalding water, images from the night before flooded back. His hands on her skin, his mouth everywhere, the way he'd whispered her name like a prayer in Korean and English both. The way he'd held her afterward, his fingers tracing patterns on her spine, while he murmured words she didn't understand but felt in her soul. She dressed in the clothes from yesterday and ventured out. The penthouse was silent except for the 2 guards stationed by the door. They nodded at her but said nothing. An hour passed, then 2. When Day 1 finally returned, his shirt was splattered with blood that definitely wasn't his. Naomi stood frozen in the living room as he entered, his expression unreadable. He stopped when he saw her, his gaze traveling over her face with an intensity that made her shiver. "Is that—" She couldn't finish. "Not mine." He moved to the bar, poured whiskey with steady hands, despite the violence evident on his clothes. The Bratva made their choice. I made mine. Horror and something darker, something she didn't want to name, twisted in her gut. "What did you do?" He turned to face her, glass in hand. "What I had to keep you safe. By killing people? By sending a message." His jaw was granite. "They needed to understand that you're off limits, permanently." "I never asked you to kill for me." The words exploded out of her. "I never asked for any of this." "No." He set down the glass and crossed to her. "You just asked me not to drink poisoned whiskey." "Everything after that? That was my choice, my responsibility. I can't do this." She backed away, tears burning her eyes. "Last night was a mistake. I can't be with someone who does what you do." Pain flashed across his face before the mask slammed back into place. "Then what do you want, Naomi? To go back to your life and pretend none of this happened? To work yourself to death serving people who don't see you? To send every penny to Miami while you eat ramen for dinner? That's my life," she shouted. "My choice, not yours. And what about when the Bratva comes for you anyway?" His voice rose to match hers. "What about when they decide that killing you is worth the risk? Who's going to protect you then? I've been protecting myself my whole life. And look where it got you, working 2 jobs, exhausted, alone, 1 crisis away from losing everything." He grabbed her shoulders. "I can give you more than that. Security, safety, everything you need." She jerked away from his touch. "I don't want to be kept. I don't want to be another thing you own." The words hit him like a physical blow. He stepped back, his hands dropping to his sides. "Is that what you think, that I see you as property? Don't you?" Tears spilled over. "You said it yourself. I'm yours. You made that clear to the Russians. What am I supposed to think?" Silence stretched between them, heavy and suffocating. "You're right," he said finally, his voice hollow. "I'm not good for you. I never was. When the threat is eliminated, you can go back to your life. I'll make sure you're compensated for your trouble." Compensated. The word tasted like ash. "For what? Saving your life? Or sleeping with you?" His eyes flashed. "For having your world turned upside down because you were in the wrong place at the wrong time. And last night was a mistake." His face could have been carved from stone. "Like you said, it was what she wanted. Distance, clarity, an end to this impossible situation. So why did it feel like her heart was being ripped out?" "Fine," she whispered. "When can I leave?" "Soon." He turned away, his shoulders rigid. "I'll let you know." She fled to her room and didn't come out for the rest of the day. 2 weeks passed in careful avoidance. Day 1 was rarely home, and when he was, they circled each other like wounded animals. Naomi spent her days reading, learning Korean from the apps he'd had installed on a phone he gave her, and trying not to think about the night that had ruined everything. She also couldn't help noticing the small kindnesses that continued despite their fight. Groceries appearing in the kitchen with her favorite foods, including ingredients for Haitian dishes her mother used to make. Books about art history stacked on her nightstand. She'd mentioned once in passing that she'd been studying art before she dropped out. A note with contact information for a specialist in Miami who treated diabetic patients, along with a message that her mother's next 6 months of care were covered. He'd remembered everything she'd told him, and he was taking care of her mother without asking permission. She should have been angry. Instead, she cried. On the 15th day, everything changed. Naomi was on the rooftop terrace wrapped in a blanket against the December cold when one of the guards burst through the door. "Miss Baptiste, we need to get you inside, now." "What's wrong?" "The Bratva. They know about your mother." Her blood turned to ice. "What?" "They've tracked her location in Miami. They're moving against her tonight." The guard's face was grim. "Mr. Kang is already en route to intercept them. He wants you secured." Naomi's legs gave out. Her mother. Those monsters were going after her mother. "I need to go to her. No." Daewon's voice cut through her panic. He stood in the doorway, already dressed for violence in all black, a gun visible at his hip. "You stay here where it's safe." "That's my mother." She stumbled toward him. "I won't sit here while she's in danger. And I won't lose you trying to protect her." His hands caught her arms, steadying her. "I have people in Miami, good people. They'll get to her first. You can't promise that." "No." His jaw was tight. "But I can promise that if you come with me, you'll be a liability, a distraction, and that might cost your mother her life." The brutal honesty stopped her cold. He was right. She knew it. But every instinct screamed at her to go, to be there, to do something. "Trust me," Daewon said quietly, his hand sliding up to cup her face. "Please, Naomi. Just this once. Trust me to fix this." She looked into his eyes and saw the truth there. He was terrified too. Not for himself, but for her, for the thought of failing her. "Bring her back safe," she whispered. "Please." He pressed his forehead to hers briefly. "I will. I swear it." Then he was gone, taking half his men with him. The guards doubled around the penthouse, and Naomi waited, each minute an eternity, as the man she'd pushed away risked everything to save the person she loved most. 5 hours later, her phone rang. Daewon's voice, rough with exhaustion. "She's safe. We got there first. The Bratva team is handled." Naomi collapsed onto the sofa, sobs of relief shaking her frame. "Is she hurt?" "Scared, but unharmed. I'm having her brought to Chicago. She'll stay in a secure facility until this is over." He paused. "She wants to talk to you." "Baby?" Her mother's voice, frail and confused, came through. "What's happening? These men, they said you were in trouble." Man, I'm okay, I promise. Just trust these people. They're keeping you safe." Naomi's voice broke. "I'm so sorry, this is my fault." "Nothing is your fault," Daewon's voice interjected, having taken the phone back. "I'll have her call you tomorrow when she's settled. Right now she needs rest." "Daewon." His name was a prayer. "Thank you." Silence stretched between them. Then, "I'm staying in Miami tonight to clean up. I'll be back tomorrow." The line went dead. He returned 36 hours later, not 24. Naomi heard the door open at 3 in the morning and found him in the living room, staring out at the city. He looked like hell, exhausted, bruised, wearing the weight of whatever he'd done in Miami like a shroud. "You came back," she said quietly from the doorway. He turned, surprise flickering across his face. "I said I would." "I know, but I also said terrible things to you, pushed you away." She moved closer, her heart pounding. "You still saved my mother." "Of course I did." His voice was rough. "I told you I'd protect you. That includes the people you love." "Why?" She stopped in front of him. "After everything I said, because I'm in love with you." The words were raw, unguarded. "I've been in love with you since you pressed that note into my hand and risked everything to save a stranger. And it terrifies me, Naomi, because loving someone in my world means giving your enemies a target. It means constantly fearing that my choices will cost you everything." Her breath caught. "Day one, let me finish." His hands clenched at his sides, like he was physically restraining himself from touching her. "I know what I am. I know what I do. I can't promise you a normal life or safety or any of the things you deserve. But I can promise that I will spend every day of my life protecting you and the people you love. That I will never stop fighting to give you the future you should have had." Tears streamed down her face. "You idiot." He blinked. "What?" "I love you too." She laughed through her tears. "I've been fighting it for weeks because it's insane and impossible and completely illogical, but I do. I love you." His control shattered. He pulled her into his arms, kissing her with desperate intensity. She melted into him, her hands fisting in his shirt, and poured everything she'd been holding back into that kiss. Fear and love and hope and need all tangled together. "Don't drink this," he murmured against her lips, and she recognized her own words from that first night. "That's what your note said. 4 words that changed my life." "Changed both our lives," she corrected, pulling him closer. "Come away with me." His forehead pressed to hers. "I have a house in California near my sister. Quiet, safe, far from this life. We can start over." "What about your empire? Yun-Su can run Chicago. I'm tired, Naomi. I've been tired for years. But with you—" His hands cradled her face. "With you, I remember what it's like to want something more than power, to want peace. And my mother, she comes with us. The facility here is temporary, but I own property near San Francisco. She'll have the best care and you'll be close to her." It was everything she'd never dared to dream of. Security, family, love, a future that didn't involve working herself to death just to survive. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes to all of it." His smile transformed his face, making him look younger, lighter. "You're sure? Because once I have you, Naomi Baptiste, I'm never letting go." She traced the dragon on his neck, that beautiful symbol of strength and rebirth. "I'm counting on it." 6 months later, Naomi stood on the deck of a beach house overlooking the Pacific, the California sun warm on her skin. Inside, her mother laughed at something Daewon said while they prepared dinner together. He was teaching her to make bulgogi. She was teaching him to make griot. The fusion of their cultures, their worlds, their lives. The Bratva threat had ended with negotiations Naomi wasn't privy to, though she suspected they involved significant bloodshed and power transfers. Daewon had stepped back from daily operations in Chicago, visiting only when necessary. Here in this quiet coastal town, he was simply a man who loved to cook, who took her mother to doctor appointments, who woke Naomi each morning with coffee and kisses. She'd enrolled in online art history courses, picking up the dream she'd abandoned. He'd started consulting for a tech company, legitimate business with his criminal network, providing security services that skirted the edge of legal but never crossed it. They were building something real, something lasting. "You're thinking too hard," Daewon said, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. "I can hear it from inside." She leaned back against his chest. "Just remembering that night at Lotus, how one choice changed everything." "Don't drink this," he murmured, kissing her neck. 4 words that saved my life. "And bound us together," she added, turning in his arms to face him. "No regrets?" His eyes searched hers, still carrying traces of that old vulnerability. She thought of her studio apartment in Pilsen, the exhaustion, the constant fear of not having enough. Then looked at the life they'd built. Her mother healthy and happy, a future full of possibilities, and this man who'd walked through fire for her. "Not a single one," she said, pulling him down for a kiss. Behind them the Pacific rolled eternal, and their future stretched bright and endless as the horizon.